You probably have aspirations, things that you want to achieve, or habits that you want to change. But if you've ever started January feeling inspired and so ready to make changes or stick with your goals, only to find yourself feeling like you've fallen off track or like you're not really getting anywhere by February, then this video is for you. In this video, I'm going to take you through a step-by-step process that will help you be successful in 2025. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Brianna, and I help you close the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. If that's what you're looking to do this year, then subscribe and stick around. Before we dive into the steps, I just want to say we are not here to play small or live on autopilot. If we want to show up as a certain version of ourselves or create a certain lifestyle or achieve specific things, then we need to be in the driver's seat of that. We are all capable of getting out of our comfort zone, breaking out of our typical patterns, and being more intentional with how we live our life. So that being said, let's go into step one. Step one is, of course, setting goals. More specifically, setting goals for Q1. We need to sit down and set specific goals because knowing the destination will help us know which road to get on to get there rather than just aimlessly driving all around, ultimately ending up probably nowhere. So we're going to set specific goals and we're going to set them for the first quarter of the year, January through March. Setting quarterly goals can help us stick with things and see results. Because we're setting smaller goals, we're getting more specific with our goals. It can nudge us towards more regular check-ins. And I found that it can help us have more zoomed out expectations around our goals rather than being so focused on, let's say, oh, I really want to change my eating habits. And when we don't do that within 3 weeks, we're like, screw it, and let it go. Whereas if we zoom out and take a look at things for the whole year and even think of things more long-term, the type of lifestyle we're trying to create, and then from there pick specific 3-month goals that help align us with that, I found that helps us have much better expectations and a better mindset around everything. So you first need to spend some time reflecting on what it is that you want to focus on and prioritize in 2025. And then from there, we can refine those big overall goals into specific things that we're focusing on in just the first 3 months of the year. For example, instead of saying, I want to eat healthier, I want to get fit, we can say, I want to go to the gym 3 times a week and meal prep my lunches for the week every day on Sunday for the next 3 months. Take whatever goals that you have in mind, whatever you want to achieve or whatever kind of changes you're looking to make, and then ask yourself, how can I make this a clear, specific goal to work toward? You can also use ChatGPT to help here. I have a video on how you can take what it is that you want to achieve within a year and then have ChatGPT break that into quarterly goals and a weekly schedule to help you follow through. So I'll go ahead and just link the video here as well as in the description. When it comes to your goals, I highly recommend setting only 1 to 4 as a max for how many goals that you're setting. And you may even want to make one a main priority and let the others just be real small, but still help nudge you toward whatever your goals are. And personally, I find having a visual that we can refer back to for this so incredibly helpful. So for example, I'm going to use this Notion template that I created to go through this process myself. This way, as life gets busy and we have so many distractions all the time, we have a place that we can always come back to help us refocus our mind toward our goals. So we've taken the things that we want to change and achieve, and we've broken them down into goals for the first quarter of the year. Now we want to set clear actions and have a plan for how we're going to follow through. The bridge between your goals, the vision that you have for yourself, and actually making that your reality is the actions that you take on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. If we set goals and have the intention that we're going to do something about them, but then stop there, odds are we're not going to get anywhere. So we want to ask ourselves, what do we need to do to make this happen? What specific actions or behaviors go into this? So let's stick with the example of having a Q1 goal of meal prepping my lunches every Sunday. I'd ask myself what specific actions are involved in this and how can I implement it into my daily, weekly, and monthly routine. Depending on what your goals are, some things will definitely be more daily, some things will be more weekly, and some things will be more on a monthly basis. For this meal prep goal, that might look like taking a few minutes every single week to plan out what recipes I want to make. Then that means I also need to take time to go to the grocery store and buy the food. It also means I need to set aside time to actually prep and cook that food for the week. I can go and look at my calendar and decide, okay, when would be an optimal time for me to do this? When would be a good time for me each week to pick out what lunch I want to make? When would be a great time for me to actually go to the grocery store? When would be a good time for me to actually set aside time to prep the meals? And then I can add that as a task or a reminder in my calendar. And when I say optimal, I mean optimal for you, not what might be the most ideal situation or scenario. For example, knowing what your life looks like, what day or time would increase the chances of you actually following through. As you get more detailed on the specific actions you're going to take and planning for how you're going to implement them into your life, I highly recommend taking a moment to just reflect and think about previous goals that you've had, previous things you've tried to achieve or make changes around, and just ask yourself, what has helped me follow through with things, and what kinds of circumstances have happened that have led me to not follow through so much. You want to reflect on and think about what seems to work well for you and what seems to throw you off track. And then you might want to go back and look at what your action plan was, and then with those new insights, decide to make a few adjustments just to make it more likely that you actually will follow through. We're all so different. One of the things that is going to really help us follow through with things is just better understanding ourselves and really understanding what tends to work well for us versus what doesn't. And instead of trying to force ourselves to do things in the most optimal way, we instead adjust the thing to make it work better for us. I also want to note that planning can be extremely satisfying for the brain, but you don't want to plan, get that dopamine hit, and then not really do anything with your goals from there. So I just want to point out that it is totally normal to feel super inspired and excited when we're sitting there and planning, and then maybe feel kind of meh or so-so when it comes to actually doing the thing. But no matter how you feel about doing the actions in the moment, you can always decide to be the version of yourself who shows up for yourself and does the thing anyways. Step 3 is obstacle anticipation. It can feel really good to plan and act like, okay, I've set this intention and I want this thing and I'm telling myself I'm going to do these things or, achieve whatever. So things are just going to go well for me. But we have to realize that's not quite how life or being a human works. There are going to be obstacles. Things are going to pop up. We are going to feel certain ways. But if we have the expectation that those things are going to happen, and if we make a plan for how we're going to navigate them, we are far more likely to actually follow through and see success. So don't skip this part. I know that it can be really tempting to, but you want to just take a few minutes. You can set a timer if that makes your brain more committed to doing the thing, but take a moment to just reflect and ask yourself, okay, what kinds of obstacles or barriers may present themselves that may make it more likely that I'll fall off the wagon? What kinds of thoughts, feelings, or circumstances can you foresee pulling you away from prioritizing this? What kinds of things might happen to make it more likely that you won't follow through with the thing? Write all of this down and then plan for how you can help set yourself up to minimize the odds of this happening, and or plan for how you want to navigate if and when this happens. Brainstorm the obstacles or barriers that might present themselves, and then write, if blank, then I will blank. So if something happens, this is how I'm going to handle it. This is how I'm going to navigate it. Step 4 is to track progress and reflect. We want to track progress because it helps keep these goals top of mind, and it provides our brain with objective data. Our brains come up with all kinds of stories on how we feel like we're doing with something, and having objective data helps us see what's really happening so that we don't just believe our brains when it says things like, we're not getting anywhere, or I'm doing so much and not making any progress. Our brains can be saying that, we can feel like that is true, and then we could look at objective data and find that the opposite is true. So it's really good to have that objective data to actually know what's happening. You can use habit trackers, you can create some kind of tracking system in an Excel sheet, you can have a weekly check-in process with yourself, but you want to have a place where you can track data and have a clear picture of your actions. And then if you notice you're not being super consistent with something or you're struggling to follow through, without any judgment, without making it mean anything about you, you can just get curious and ask, what kind of adjustments can I make? How can I experiment with trying something different to see if it works better for me? How could I maybe better set myself up for success? Personally, I recommend tracking progress in some way and having a weekly reflection process with yourself. If you want to go on this journey with me over the next 3 months, then we are including this in our action plan. So pick out a time each week that you're going to track things and answer a few reflection questions. I have a video where I talk about this process more in detail, and I'll link it above. Use this tracking process as a way to help hold yourself accountable. Do this for you. Think about future you. Maybe think about previous little you that you want to make proud. Do it for you. And step 5, the last step, is mindset. Your thoughts have such an influence on what you do, so if you want to better help yourself follow through, then a huge part of the process is watching your mindset. I want you to think about what it would look like to show up as an extremely committed version of yourself. This may look way different than what you're used to, and that's okay. But what is this version of yourself like, and how can you practice embodying being this version of yourself? Committing to something and staying consistent does not mean following through all of the time or doing things in a way that your brain has deemed the most ideal. Life is going to life, brains are going to brain, humans are going to human, so don't expect yourself to show up perfectly every week because that's just not fair to yourself. Staying committed and staying consistent means you keep showing up, even if things don't look perfect or aren't done in the most ideal way. If you fall off track, if you let things slip, if you don't do things the way that you told yourself you were going to, that's okay. What matters is that you get back to doing the thing. You don't just stop. That's what being committed and staying consistent really looks like. And let yourself be more flexible. Let yourself make adjustments. Let yourself do things to a lesser degree than what your goal was sometimes. If something isn't working really well for you, then experiment with making some adjustments and finding what might work better for you. Get curious, have fun with it, and make sure you celebrate your wins. It can be way too easy to get focused on what we're not doing or how we're not doing things to the level of the expectations that we set for ourselves and not pay any attention to the ways that we are making progress, to the little changes that we are making, to the ways that we are improving. And then when we're only focused on where we're not showing up how we want to, we get discouraged, we get disappointed, and it becomes far more likely that we just let things go. We stop showing up. So make sure you look for the tiny signs of change, improvement, or progress. Celebrate them. So a quick recap. Step 1, set goals for the first quarter of the year. Just focus on that first 3-month timeline. Make sure they are clear and specific. Step 2 is to set clear actions that support those goals and have a plan for how you're going to implement them. Step 3 is to plan for potential obstacles and how you're going to navigate them. Step 4 is to track progress and reflect. And step 5 is to watch your mindset. Let me know in the comments, what is your top goal for this year? Again, if you are wanting to close the gap between where you are now and where you want to be, go ahead and subscribe. We can make changes this year together. And thanks so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.